Welcome back to Paramedics and Pints. I'm Chris. With me today, we got Wade, as always, and we got a new face with a better mustache. Disappointingly,
I was surprised you invited me on because that was the last thing you said when I saw you.
I know.
You don't think you can have me on
obviously,
here.
it cuts me real deep. So, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. How in depth do we go with this? Is this like?
Don't talk about where you work specifically, but
Okay.
your background a little bit.
Yeah. So my name's Cody. I've been a paramedic for a little over 4 years, in EMS for 5 years, here at a local 911 agency. I'm actually doing this job because of him, and I don't even know if he knows that. I was gonna do nursing though, and then you talked about adenosine, and I was like, wait, I can just like shut somebody's heart off in their living room, and I'm doing that. That sounds awesome. So, but yeah, 5 years in EMS, military before that, not medical related at all.
Just a grunt, right?
Yeah, infantryman. And yeah, here we are. Do the tac-med team for the agency I'm at, and
I'm sure that we can talk about that because people love to hear about tac-med and what that entails. So,
did you guys
more
call
boring
each
than
other
you
this
think it
morning?
is.
Because your outfit is like to a T.
I know. Oh, hang on. Here we go.
Oh yeah,
There you
there we
go.
go. There we go.
I'll keep it that way.
No,
better.
it's just people with good fashion sense. I'm
That's
sorry
fair.
you're not.
That's fair.
You're not on the same level.
That's fair. I feel like I'm inversing you a little bit, but it happens.
It kind of a little bit, right? Yeah, like
Yeah.
your mustache though not as good for
fine.
sure.
He used to have a nice one.
Yeah.
The nice little curly
Once upon
Q he
a
had
time.
going.
It's kind of fun for me because two of us are EMS instructors, but you guys are both like my little babies over there. So
Yeah.
first and second class I ever taught. You guys are
really?
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was in his first
Wayne was
class.
first
Oh,
class,
okay.
and
Yeah.
you were my second class. So it's kind of
that's
fun
awesome.
to sit here in like the full circleness of like now to be able to share the stories of the field and all that's really cool.
So I just followed you straight through the poor
Yeah,
decision of
you've
go
copied
from
every
EMT to
bad choice.
paramedic school. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you also didn't get a job as an EMT first?
No, I was in school like a week into it, and everybody in the front row is people that are at the agency that we both came from, and they're just smart, crushing all the questions, know everything going on, and I'm like, I should probably get a job. Like,
Trying to figure out
I
where
don't
you're
know
going to
what's
get the
happening
next.
right now.
Yeah, that's a whole thing we could get into that people watching this maybe aren't that interested in, but like
Zero to hero route.
whether or not to do some time. as
It
an
worked
EMT.
out, but I would highly recommend that
Yeah.
somebody gets some experience before.
Baptism by fire for sure.
Yeah.
Doing it the route that you guys did it.
Yeah, I don't often endorse the route that we took because it obviously is doable, but that learning curve was like a slap in the head.
I like to be humbled. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of, we have a new little one on the wheel for humble pie. Maybe we'll land on. So, as always, we'll spin the wheel, and that will kind of give us a conversation topic to get started. So,
Perfect.
you're over there, so I'll just spin
Okay.
it. And somebody's got to read it because I can't see it.
Oh, bugs.
Bugs.
Stopped at Buggies.
All right, Sabrina, you want to come grab it? Bug stories.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Got any good bug stories?
I got one right off the top. It's one of my favorite
Oh, real
stories.
quick, I forgot. What are we drinking today?
Yes, first.
Well, I'm going full paramedic today, and I've got three things. I've got a Monster Zero Sugar energy drink to start with, and then
For
I've
his
got
health.
a Mac and Jack's African Amber for the beer, and I brought in a little Scotch as well, Balvenie Distillery. I think I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm, in fairness, pronouncing it that way because I think that's what it would sound like if I pronounced it with a Scottish accent. So,
Okay.
That really does epitomize a lot of paramedicine right there.
yeah, I felt like it summed it up.
I'm drinking a dill pickle sour because Sabrina thought it would be a good idea. It's made with real pickle brine, and it tastes like I'm drinking a pickle. So
How do you feel about pickles in general?
I just overcame my aversion to them like last year, so this feels like I'm gonna need to grow up a little bit.
It looks like it has a picture of Cody there on the can. Actually. Yeah.
Yeah, were you bare knuckle boxer back in the day?
Fisticuffs.
No, but I could strive for it. I think I this is a much more fun way to do it, I feel like, than, actually functional, but I like the mustache on the can.
Fun fact, they used to stance themselves like this because they didn't aim for the face in bare knuckle because it hurts your hands. They'd punch them in the torso, so their hands would be lower. They didn't have to cover their face as much.
I'm not even going to ask how you know that.
Yeah,
it's ADHD and unrestricted access to the internet.
You're
I'm pretty
right.
sure, so.
Google searches are questionable sometimes, but here we are.
I understand.
I've got it's brownie caramel cream root beer because I'm the root beer guy. So we'll see how that is. Always love little kind of craft root beers.
Yeah.
So we're getting the middle finger from Sabrina, which means we can start saying grown-up words now if you guys would like to. So
That's
Just
good.
want to yell one. Just get it out of the way.
so you got a story about bugs if you want to go for it.
Yeah, so this was early-ish in my FTO time. I think it was my third FTO I was seeing. I was in my phase 2, and we were downtown. And coincidentally, this was the only call that my FTO actually teched the entire time I was with them.
Well played, sir.
Oh, they definitely got me. But we show up to this restaurant. It was kind of an outdoor kind of like brewery type feel. And there was a dog that was leashed to the sign, and there was a gentleman who looked to be of the unhoused variety, laying down next to this dog, and he said, "This is my dog. This is my dog," and we're like, well, we can't take him, right? Like, we got to figure this out. Now, for context, this will come up later. This gentleman was wearing parachute pants, okay? And very notably was not wearing much underneath said parachute pants. So it seemed like a very cut and dry kind of, psych type situation. So my FTO was like, you know what? I'll take this one. Now, where we started to get into problems is as we stood this person up, he had a hole right in the crotch of his parachute pants. And from every time he'd move, you'd see a little gopher through the parachute pants. It was like, okay, this is already starting so strong. So we get to the hospital. First off, find out that's totally not his dog. He was trying to steal somebody who was in the brewery and their dog. But when we get out of the ambulance, my FTO was like, oh, you're lucky that guy stunk and he was all this, that, the other. And then it wasn't until the nurse comes out, which a nurse we know pretty well from the ER downtown, pokes her head in and says, hey, did you bring this guy in? We're like, yeah. She's like, okay. He's covered in bed bugs. And my FTO, the face that she made, the color drained out. and then it's like, God damn it, now I gotta wash the whole fucking rig. And spray alcohol. Oh, it was so good. But also, if you're not in the field, or if you are in the field, bed bugs are the worst thing, and I'm already getting itchy just thinking about them.
Mm-hmm. If I am aware of them on a patient, there is more PPE involved with that than like probably Ebola. I'd be like, I'll take my chances with that. But bed bugs, no, that's not going to happen.
Not once.
But I feel like that's generally how the bed bug stories go. Is like I've only a couple of times known about the bed bugs until either we're on the way to the hospital and it's too late to do anything about it, or like they tell me after the fact. But I've
Like, how would you know? For the most part,
unless you see him,
unless you happen to see him, right? Like,
I mean, there's some locations, one in particular,
that's true.
we all know of, that you hear the dispatch and you're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Tyvek suit coming out. Ugh.
Yeah, I might have told the story before, like my best, because I've been on a couple bed bugs calls, but my best one was at a hotel that does not have the greatest reputation.
I believe I know already.
There's a couple of them.
Starts with
you
an-
for sure know this one.
Yeah.
So maybe I've said that. Maybe I've told the story in the podcast before, but we got called for whatever it was, and there's like a guy like minimally conscious, pretty out of it, like at the door to this motel room, and there's a couple on the bed, laying on the bed, just watching TV, like 4 a.m. Don't care whatsoever what we're doing, like not paying attention to us at all. As this guy's just laying there, and he doesn't have any pants on. He's like pantsless with a shirt on, but there's like some like sweatpants laying next to him, right? And they look like they have blood all over them. They're like there's a big dark brown blood stain on him. So, we put the yellow blanket on the gurney. We put this guy up on, like, we lift him up. We kind of talk to him in the yellow blanket. We're all good there. And then one of the fire guys grabs his pants, which I was not going to touch the pants. They can stay just right where they are.
You're assuming blood, always questionable.
Yeah, why would I take them with me? He'll get hospital pants at the hospital and just puts them on the gurney, and it's like, well, it's already here. We'll just keep going with them. So we go to the hospital, right? We drop the patient off, and we like move the patient over, and the nurse is like, what's that on the pants? And it's like, oh, it looks like we're pretty sure it's dried blood. And she's like, it's moving. And it was a big old like colony of bed bugs. Like, I mean, it had to be like a $50 size of that just started skittering around and moving. Once you really looked at it, you could see.
Just burn it. The whole hospital.
It was great. It was real gross. So we had to do the whole like decon procedure and all that. But we told thankfully the supervisor was really nice because we've been getting ran all day. And he's like, you guys can just like go home, go back to the station, take a shower, just stay out of service until shift change. You guys have had enough. And he called the hotel. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know my crews just ran a call here, and there was like really bad bed bug infestation. The person said, we spray on Wednesdays. Click.
Oh no!
Not a shocking answer.
No. If you know the establishment, it makes a lot of sense. Another one, real quick too, that's just kind of funny. More like for paramedics, we'll get why. Anyways, the same supervisor, and we get called for. He was supervisor. I was working on the ambulance with him that day, right? So, which is kind of surprising. It's not common, but we're just partners that day, and we get called. And we show up on scene, and lady's like, GCS3, unconscious, right? But the main thing that stuck out to me in the house is she just covered in ants. So he was like, she's been unconscious for a while. Because, covered in just like normal little black ants, but covered in them. And I was so excited because this supervisor was known as being the nasal tube guy, right? Like nasal tubes are like something that we
I
are
automatically
taught.
know who you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly, because that was his reputation, right? And so that's like a lost art of nasal tubes. It used to be way common for paramedics.
Tried it once and completely jacked it up.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, cool. She needs a tube. I've got this supervisor here who loves, and I was a pretty new medic, like loves to help out with nasal tubes. Like, this is a time. This is going to be great. I'm going to be like, hey, can you walk me through it? And so I asked, like, you get a nasal tube? Can we nasal tube her? Like, you mind like walking me through on a real patient? I've never done a real patient. He's like, oh well, let me see if she'll take a blade first. And of course, she took a Mac blade, and we just like no meds. He just like RSI'd her with no meds. Whoa. She was that down.
I've done that before, but that's rare. Like that's usually like postcodes that I've done that too.
Yeah, she was real bad shape.
Just for like my clarity, he didn't like tomahawk this either, right? Just to add to the badassery.
We like moved out because he like saw the ants. He's like, see you at the ambulance, and then met us out of the ambulance, and then like hopped in and like just normal intubation, but more like let's see if she has a gag reflex, and if she does, then we'll do a nasal tube because I don't want to have to push ketamine and all that stuff and sedate her and intubate her and all that. So I was really excited, and then of course took the tube, and I was like, this was my chance. I didn't get it.
That's old school paramedicine. Let's just check it real quick, right? Because we're like, ketamine sucks, get it all out, That's cool.
I mean, I've seen it go really south in the ER where we brought in a patient that initially was like talking to us and just a little confused, and then by the time we got to the hospital was like really minimally responsive or whatever, and so they had a fall and hit their head, so we trauma leveled them, dropped them off at the trauma bay, and we're given the report, and there's a resident and an attending, right? So there's a student doctor there, and give the report, and we can hear like the student doctor looked like they were probably newer, at least in the ER, like kind of talking through what they're doing, and like, okay, well, we need to intubate this patient, like, oh, how do you want to do that, whatever. And so student doctor's like, let's try an OPA, and the patient takes the OPA, okay. And the doctor, the attending's like, what do you think? Do we want to do the RSI meds or whatever? And the resident's like, no, I think we're okay. And we could tell, my partner and I could tell, like, that's not what the attending's about right now. Like, it was very much trying to steer the student doctor to like, no, do the right procedure, but I'm gonna allow you to fail. And so you could tell it was a little bit of like, all right, make your decision. And they went in to intubate with no meds and just vomited just everywhere once they hit that gag reflex, just so bad. And
Now
I
you're
remember,
behind the 8 ball, like you're just struggling to keep
and I
up
mean
with
the
suction. and-
risk of
yeah.
death from aspiration pneumonia is so high, right? Like my partner and I, who we all know very well, just like legitimately walked out in disgust of like why? Like we did all the right things to get this patient here, and like a stupid mistake that should not have happened. Not to backseat quarterback a doctor; they know a whole lot more than I do, but it was a pretty obvious decision to make there to take the 10 seconds to push the meds, and it wasn't
Especially in an ER environment. Like,
Yeah.
you've got the hands. Like, all you got to do is say, ketamine sucks or ketamine rock, whatever you want to use to, and just somebody's going to do it. But,
and like, to have, you have the time. Like the patient was grossly stable. Well, I shouldn't say that because they had to be intubated, right? But they weren't like circling the drain that we could see.
Yeah.
It wasn't like crash intubation. If we don't, the patient's going to die. Like you had the time to push the meds, and that was I don't know. That was. I don't think we got a follow up, but I have a feeling there was pretty negative things that happened after that because it was a lot of puke.
One of those that like projectile.
Yeah.
That's a hard call to make, like when you're teaching people too, is to just let them step in it, for lack of a better way of putting it. Like I'm not an FTO, but I swing up a fair amount now at this point. I have a hard time. I don't think I'd let somebody go for that. Like just knowing what I know and having made the mistakes myself. Like, no, we're gonna take a couple seconds and do the meds. But
that for sure, that's a tough thing as an FTO to allow people to, like, I think we call it like failing upwards or failing forward or something, like allowing them to make non-life-threatening mistakes, but it can be very hard.
Oh, it's so hard
to like step back and be like, no, you're wrong, but go ahead.
It's where I learned most of the stuff that was important to me in my FTO was, guys like you or Cody Hansen or any of those guys were really good about being like, nope, I'm going to let you step in it. Like, have fun.
Yeah. And then afterwards, a good debrief of like, how'd that go?
Not well.
I think you told me that story when I was your trainee, because every time I that thought came up of like, during the code is like, I could just drop this tube. But I know they're dead. It's a code, but that always tickled the back of my brain. And they said, well, we're just going to get ready to do it,
I think aside from like actively coded patients, the only time I've only done it once where I didn't use any meds, and it was like, their posturing and like the whole 9 yards. Took the OPA without a gag reflex, and we were kind of in a hurry, and I was like, it worked, okay. But
You got any good bug stories, Cody?
No, not really any good ones. Like just kind of annoying ones. There's been 3 separate times with one of the no longer there fire captains in downtown area that we work with that was fully aware the patient was covered in bed bugs and decided not to mention anything about it until we were in the ambulance. But I mean, none that are like super funny or interesting, just super irritating. Like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like there was 100 yards for you to tell me that like, hey, maybe we should do something about this. But
doesn't feel pertinent.
Just in the back starting to intubate, and they're like, "Do you see all those bed bug bites?" No, I didn't actually. Thank you. I was occupied elsewhere.
Scene's not safe. Scene's not safe.
Have you ever seen or had any of the maggot calls?
No.
I had one. It wasn't. I've heard some horror stories with maggots, but it was one of the first times I ever saw a gangrenous wound. Like this guy was literally scheduled to have his leg amputated the next day, and we took I'll never forget the smell. But we took the dressing off, and I saw a couple maggots crawl through. And was like, we're just gonna tape that closed. It's not like it's gonna be around much longer anyway,
Maggots might be doing some good stuff for it.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly,
I've heard stories of like people, like providers, throwing up into their masks because
that would do it for me. Like that's I have a relatively stout stomach in this job, but I feel like if I pulled down a bandage and there was maggots like in somebody's body, that would be the moment. It's like nope.
The one story I'm thinking about, the providers were telling me just secondhand stuff. They're like, he told us that he could feel them crawling in his foot. And that's when it was like, no more. I don't want to hear anymore. But yeah, they both those providers were like, they threw up in their N95s and then had to go and like relieve themselves separately. No thank you.
The amount of things that I've seen where you're like, how do you as a living human being just like, that's just every day. Those maggots didn't just happen in the last 10 minutes. And you've just been like, huh,
Well,
Anyways, let's go get some sandwiches.
It's not just stuff like that. Like me and my partner, this was just a couple weeks ago. We picked up somebody from one of the group homes in, and I'm sure everybody's been to this group home, but pick up the guy who's been sick for a few days. He's like, yeah, I've had some diarrhea. I've been kind of nauseous, but otherwise he's okay, right? So get him in the back, check vitals. Vitals are okay. I give him to my EMT partner, and we start driving. And she's in the back talking with this guy the whole time. Like, they're just having a conversation. And at no point in time during this incident did he make any inclination that he was shitting his pants. Like, no grunting, no like break of eye contact, just full on conversing with my partner back there. And we get to the hospital. I come around and open the door. We're going to walk him into the hospital, and he stands up, and I make eye contact with what I am now convinced is like a sentient pile of human feces on the captain's chair of this rig. No. Like, so now that's like, nobody sits in that captain's chair. It will never be clean again. But like, that's the first time anybody is aware of this. So I'm just looking at it with this face of disgust. And my partner turns and looks at me and then looks back, and same face of disgust comes up. And the patient just turns and looks at it and goes, sorry about the chair. And gets out of the but he's like in sweatpants. Like, I don't know how it got out of his, like, it had to be enough to like fully load it out and come up over the waistband. It was just, but no grunting, like, didn't acknowledge it at all. And I'm like, how do you get to this point that you don't care so much that you can just load your pants in the back of an ambulance and walk away?
That feels like one of those Walmart videos where you see like people pull their pants to the side and drop one and then walk away. Like, that is the same energy.
I would almost have preferred that he did that, though, because like, at least you knew. Like, but no, you just sat there and, shit steamed right through a pair of sweatpants, like
evaporated out, recondensed.
It's nice to see that no matter what we talk about, it always comes back to poopy pants.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Another one thing that always made, like, I never understood about ambulances, having worked on a whole lot of them, is they all have this like faux leather on the seats, but it has like texture.
Yeah,
it's always texture.
Why?
The amount of nasty stuff that gets on there that gets stuck in those little texture grooves.
You can't clean it.
Why is it just not like?
It's like when people buy the old ambulances and turn them into RVs. Like, you can't. First off, there's probably, like, I don't even believe in ghosts.
There's
but
ghosts
I wouldn't
for sure.
do that.
Yeah.
But not to mention just like chemically, like, oh my God, that has got to be the most disgusting environment in human history.
I mean,
like,
on the flip side, I've slept on a gurney in a lot of
I
ambulances
have,
back in the
but
day,
we're
so.
broken, so it's.
Yeah, I mean,
I've done it on standbys. So
I get it.
On your ghost comment, I haven't thought about this call in a while. It was Christmas, and me and another provider that we were pretty good friends with, we were like up into the hills, and we pick up a younger gal. She had recently had a heart surgery. She had coded on the table, like she's like mid-30s. And as we were coming down, she's like, yeah, I'm just really unlucky. My therapist said if I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck. And as she said that, the rig light, the back's turned off. And I was like, well, that's weird. I went and hit the light button, and they wouldn't turn back on. So we ended up going through the rest of this call with like just the ambient dome lighting from the front. And then as soon as she got out of my rig, hit that button, lights turned back on. And the ghost thing is real. There's some weird stuff that happens in ambulances from time to time.
So we mostly have really new, nice rigs at the agency we all came from, but there's like a couple that are really old. One in particular, we have.
Have you heard of the squeaky one yet?
It's the Berry rig now.
Oh.
We got rid of the old, like 1990s Berry rig. Now Squeaky is the Berry rig, which is great until you have a Berry patient because it squeakies
I could
even
feel
more
the
than it
clot
used to
moving
now.
in my brain every time it squeaks.
But we have one of our units that's up some of the time that's in a hospital-based facility that has just crappy dimensions to the garage, so it's a very specific, like, 2 rigs that can be in there. And I was in there when it was like the old rig that was supposed to be replaced, but somebody crashed the new rig one time. So it's like rig 10, and we're in like the 90s and resetting to the ones now at this point. But so we're in rig 10, and I've got this patient that I don't even remember what the call was, but I remember like I'm intubating this guy, and the dome light immediately above my head as I'm over this patient's face is just flickering. And I had stopped, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm sitting there, I have my laryngoscope, and I have a tube in this hand, and we've already pushed ketamine and rock, and he's like fully sedated, and his eyes are open, but he's like on ketamine, and I'm like,
If this guy is awake enough at all to have any conscious thought about what's happening, all he sees above him right now is my dumbass with a shiny metal blade, a flickering light, and a tube about to stick it in his throat. Like that's all he's gonna remember of this entire situation. And it just wouldn't stop. Yeah, he's gonna have a bad time in therapy later because of that rig. Like,
me and Nide had a moment too. We were far west county, like one of the furthest from the hospital we had, and we dropped our patient off. It's like 4 a.m, so there's that silence of like, I'm broken. I don't want to be here anymore.
And now you have to drive through everybody's district.
Right, now we got to drive all the way back in service. But at that, like, as I'm thinking, like, I don't want to be here anymore, the radio turned on, and I looked at Nide, and she looked at me, and it was like, did you turn that off? She's like, no. Did you just turn that on? No. So it was like one of those two where it's like, well, we better not run another call tonight because this is how the tires fall off our rig.
Yeah.
You just never know. Haunted rigs are a thing.
You guys are probably just hadn't been around long enough for the old
Medic 15.
Yeah, the old downtown
I came
station.
in. I'm Medic 15 now. Like that's my station. But no, I was just after they moved it to Station 1 that I got on full time. So
Yeah, so
Same.
there used to be, it was a weird like group of row houses that had become like offices, business offices essentially. So we had one of those that had the garage outside, detached garage, but you'd go in and you walked like into the kitchen and there was like this scary basement that I would not go down there by myself at night. It was just a scary like unfinished basement where they put like all the storage because it was like one of the supply stations.
Storage bodies.
Yeah, it's where they stored the bodies.
now,
Yeah. It's more.
yeah.
But yeah, like
Station 5 was in a morgue for a little while.
oh yeah, it was right.
It was
when they were
interesting,
building
yeah.
it, the new one. But yeah, that station, I swear, and I'm don't believe in that stuff, but I would not sleep upstairs. A large part, it was an old building with very steep, very short stairs up and down, and I didn't want to be waking up 3 times and just face planting. But
Peter Griffin downstairs.
somebody at some point upstairs there, you guys probably have heard this before, like
Tied a noose.
noose from a rafter. So there was just a noose hanging up there from a rafter. And I at least one time, I was working with Cody Hansen. We were working there, and we're both sitting, it's just the 2 of us, sitting down because the living room was like where we would chart and everything. And we both like just kind of stop, and both of us heard footsteps. And like, one of those things where we both looked up and looked at each other and like looked up, and you could just hear like, I swear there was somebody walking upstairs.
It might just be a 1.5 thing because now the 1.5 has that like upper area that nobody goes up to, and there's like a running joke that some homeless guy is just living up there when we're off on calls, like just because every now and again you hear stuff, and I think it's just the big cavernous bedrooms that weren't supposed to be
Those bedrooms are
but, like,
awful, honestly. Like, because the lights are off in the middle of the night, and you look, and it's like, my bed is more than 15 feet away. Like, I've got to cross ground to get to the corner.
You walk into the room, you turn on the lamp on the nightstand first, and then you come back and shut off the lights. Otherwise, you're just going to eat shit on the way over to the bed. But I've been there a while.
That one over by the TV room in there, I tripped over the ottoman in there one night. I ate it so hard. like showing up and be like, why are your knees bleeding on the next call? It's like, not a big deal. It's totally not my fault. For sure.
Yeah.
Were you in the reserves when I was in the reserves, or had you been hired full time by then?
I was a
You were
reserve
in-
for
yeah.
like one meeting, and then I got full time hired.
You
That's where-
hated me
Yeah.
at
Yeah, I
first
did.
when I got hired.
Yeah, it's-
and that's my fault, I think,
Yeah.
because the only thing I knew about you, like I connected the dots, and then my mouth can't, filter words
Yeah.
very well. So I distinctly remember, like, we were in the meeting, and I met you, and I was like, "Oh, you're the one who slept through the call with Mike."
Yeah.
And then
It's like, who the fuck is this guy?
it was like I was like, not meaning poorly. I was just like, connect the dots. Yes, this is Wade that I've heard about. Okay.
That was awful. That was
Because
a bad
Mike was
night.
my mentor when I got on as
right.
reserve.
Like he was my mentor, and that I think he was both of our mentor at the same time.
Might have been.
Because he was, and then that was like right before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then we both got kicked out, and then I got picked up full time.
Yeah, but I got picked up April coming up shortly thereafter. So yeah.
Then I went to Chris. Chris was my EMT teacher, and then he was my first FTO.
You were my.
And now he's my first boss here.
You were my second FTO as a medic.
That
you
was
were not an FTO. My FTO as an EMT was literally a week with with Levi Powell. That he was basically like, well, I don't think you're going to crash the ambulance, so you're cleared.
Isn't it great
oh.
that that's the level sometimes?
Well, that was COVID. It was
Yeah, well,
like,
that's
you're
what I'm
not
saying, right?
completely stupid, and get out of here.
You fooled him real well.
I did. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah, I
Levi,
feel like
if
we
you're
were
listening, I'm sorry.
we got destroyed, right? Because
We
that's
did.
when we
crushed.
did.
That was 2-1 on Fridays and 1-7 on Sundays.
Yeah, 2-1 is the busiest ambulance station in the state of Idaho.
I worked 2-1 for 2 straight years, by the
you're a
way.
fool.
After that, I actually liked it.
Yeah, I stand by
but
what I
hate
said.
myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Broken.
Now I'm at 1-5.
It's those stations are a great place to be when you're new. Like I really feel like new people should be shoved into the busiest stations for a couple years, and like your experience level is going to go up way quicker than if you're running 3 calls a shift, right?
Yeah. So I worked the station, Medic 3-3, which is a very rural station, for like a year and a half, almost straight, like right after I cleared with a double medic partner, and we got a lot of awesome calls. And then I got 2-1 as my full-time station that we were at, and I got hammered. But it was such a, because 2-1 it's super central in the county. All the hospitals are relatively close, but especially the trauma hospital. So if you're on a critical call and you're like, okay, well, I want to do A, B, C, D, oh, we're here. So your priorities change immensely. Like but it was a super good learning moment for me.
I think that's important too, is like, for anyone in whatever system you work at, work in different portions of it, because get some experience with, okay, we are 45 minutes out, I got a lot of things to do, versus we are less than 5 minutes from the hospital, this person's sick, what is the most important thing right now?
Do I
diversify.
do airway? Do I do
Right?
What's going to kill them first right now versus
and I like to describe too of like, there's complaints about different parts of the county of like, oh, well, this one's got the homeless shelter. Well, this one's just full of nursing homes. And that's where I have the argument, like, everywhere has their nursing home. Whether it's a prison, a homeless shelter, an actual nursing home. There's calls in every district that nobody wants to be at.
For mine, it's the VA right now.
Yeah, which probably hits different for you a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little irritating. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, it was.
I don't know what that says about you, but
Well, I'm kind of dumb.
You guys want to hear? I'm not going to drop the name here. I'll tell you guys later. But my funniest VA story. It's just the stupidest thing. You'll really love this being a veteran.
Perfect.
All right. We got called to the VA one time, and they called us for a stroke. And the level of care is not always the best.
What we always
there,
get called for is stroke transfers that aren't.
Which, I mean, it's a federally funded government thing, so they're just chronically underfunded and understaffed, and
especially now.
Yeah, I try not to give too much hate on the people there. Like, they're doing the best they can, right?
Well, and they don't have the equipment to do the assessment. So, like, in fairness to them, if I was the doctor and I was like, well, you've got this weird, like, right arm numbness thing going on, we should probably scan you.
I don't want to be like
it.
that
You're going
guy.
to St. Luke's.
I don't want to be that guy, but like we don't have the equipment either, and I use my eyeballs. So, but I digress.
I was trying to be nice with it.
Sorry.
Anyways, it was not a stroke. Very much not a stroke, right? It was a simple hypoglycemia. But the guy was doing his best. And the nurse was like, when we were like, yeah, did you check his blood sugar? And he was like, oh, like, well, it's 42. So, and he's like, oh, so. It was a normal thing, right? Where like we start an IV, we give the guy some sugar, all the normal stuff, and kind of as he's coming around, chatting to him, and my partner was a veteran, and so just kind of asked, where'd you serve, and all that kind of stuff, and the patient had been a pilot, but he went. I know. I think you probably have heard the story. I want to say he was between like Korea and Vietnam. Oh. So he was a pilot that flew fighter jets, maybe fighter planes. I don't know what they would be considered then. Well, you're the military historian.
Yeah, there would be jets then.
But he never got to see any combat, or didn't fly in action, right?
Yeah.
And, he was saying how that was his big regret.
I already know where this is going. I've heard this story. I hate your partner.
So he was talking about that and how he never got to see action, whatever, and that was his biggest regret. And so we do the whole thing. He comes around, we do all the paperwork, like do the refusal. He doesn't want to go to the hospital and whatever, and all that's all good, right? And so we're going to leave. We're literally like bags in hand walking out the door, and my partner turns around. He's like, "Sir, you might not have seen action, but you got saved by a military medic," or something like that. As we
Fucking gag me with a spoon.
It was the cringiest thing I've ever heard a partner say.
But
it
it's
was
completely
so bad.
fitting for that person.
Yeah, if you know the person, you're like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But I like the secondhand embarrassment I felt was so bad. So bad.
You know that emoji where it's just like,
Yeah. That same individual that you're talking about is the only person that has ever shocked me while I was doing compressions on a patient.
oh.
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
It hurt, but like it wasn't like, I thought they'd make it seem like this big deal that you clear off the patient or you're going to die. And it was just kind of like I'm doing compressions. I heard it charge because we pre-charge, but he said no words at all as to like, hey, clear, we're going to shock. So I'm just doing compressions and zap. Fuck. Why? Okay.
You just go back because at this point you're not the bad's already happened.
I'm just going to keep going. But it was like,
He taught
I
my
didn't
ACLS
die.
class. That's ironic.
Oh,
That's
really?
ironic.
Yeah.
I mean,
In fairness to him, he's smart. I
Very smart
actually
gentleman.
legitimately learned some interesting stuff from him working a couple shifts with him, but God, he's irritating with it. So anyway, sorry, we should probably move off of that.
That insight.
you hit one of the two people that trigger me.
we all have those. When you spend 24, 48 hours straight with people, like, and you get to know them in that intimate setting of being
Atmosphere.
that close as partners, like half your day you're literally 3 feet from this person.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that like, I get along with just about everybody, but there's some people that it was like, I will trade, I will call out sick. I'm not working with that
Well,
person.
it's hard to get trades for some of those people.
That's true.
Yeah.
Usually it's not just the bridge between you and them they have
Yep.
burned, it's all of them that they
Yep.
have burned. Yeah.
It's always funny too when like somebody texts you like, "Hey man, you want to trade?" and then you check and it's with one of those, and you're like,
Fuck you.
or you
No.
just say, "Ha."
That happened to me. Yeah. Mine wasn't even a bad partner. I think the person that I was texting just didn't like me. So I was like, yeah, I'm trying to be close to home. I got to check on it. Ha. I'm going to go ahead and take that as a no. And then he proceeded to trade with somebody else, the same station. I'm like, okay, well, fuck you.
That's just personal.
Yeah, I know. It's-
They're obviously personal.
And then he found out that I was dating Jill, and he loves Jill, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, you're okay.
Yeah,
you're
you're cool.
people that I can associate
That's the
with.
convenience. Like my wife was very well liked before I got there, and so when I got there, like, oh, I guess you're just okay. I got invited to like barbecues by people who would be shocking to you. Like I met them like in my clinical hours, and they'd be like, "Hey, you want to come to a barbecue at my house this weekend?" I was like, "Dude, I don't even know what I'm doing here." Like,
I don't remember your name.
yeah,
It's because your wife would like
Yeah.
break their elbows or something if they didn't.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they're just scared of her.
Got into an argument with. Yeah, she wins a lot of fights. I would know pretty personally. She wins a lot of fights.
So tell us a little bit about tac-med, because that's always something people are really interested in, and kind of a cool thing.
Well, it's anybody from tac-med listening to this, I apologize. It's not as cool as it sounds like.
I mean, nothing ever is,
yeah.
right?
It's cool. The problem with it in our agency right now, I think, is there's not just a ton of incentive to do it. Like, there's no extra pay. There's no anything other than like, hey, you get to go to these cool trainings and you get to go out with the SWAT teams and stuff. But at least here locally, the way it works, we have funding for a 9-man team. We're currently at 7 because people haven't been able to pass the physical fitness standards essentially to be on the team. I barely did. It tried to kill me. I have lost a lot of weight since then. But we're an integrated part of the SWAT teams. There's three now teams that we support within the Valley where we're at. Everybody that's on the team is part of the 911 transport agency that we all worked for. They are talking about opening it up to some of the fire departments as well, just to help with staffing, because now that there's 3 teams and they're all trying to get after it, 7 people is not enough to cover all the call outs all the time. So but it's currently a 7-man team, funding up to 9. We have full kit and everything. We go through, I did the basic Boise PD SWAT course. It was a week-long course with a bunch of their new SWAT operators and stuff. Got to go through that, shoot a bunch of guns and do basically super high-speed airsoft with paint rounds that really fucking hurt. It was really fun.
Sounds like you got hit.
And it's I get to do a tactical medical provider course here in April. It's like a week-long course, national level certification thing, similar to like a critical care paramedic course, as something that we're bridging to do.
It's like TCCC, or is it beyond that?
Beyond that. We've done TCCC. Excuse me. And we're doing TMP. It's Tactical Medical Provider. It's put on by, I think it's SOAR Rescue is the group that's going to be doing the one we're doing in April. But the idea behind it is kind of like similar to flight, just extra training to be able to justify expanded protocols. We're looking to be able to do things like chest tubes, finger thoracoscopies, things like that in the field. But the basic concept of it is, you're on scene, you're with the SWAT teams, you are there if an operator goes down, that you can stabilize them, do those initial treatments better than they'd be able to do. A lot of those guys are, EMTs or at least first aid or TCCC certified, but be able to actually stabilize those patients, get them out for transport by another ambulance. Or actually, in most cases, if an operator is hit, we'll take them all the way into the hospital. But it's, for the most part, we show up to calls and hang out in an armored vehicle for a few hours while they, yell at a guy over a loudspeaker until he decides that he does not actually want to commit suicide by cop and comes outside. So it's been a lot of fun. The trainings are really cool. I've really enjoyed it. Nationally, there's different ways of doing it. That's just kind of how we do it locally here. Yeah. There's some places that they'll actually send their cops off to paramedic school to get them certified as medics, which the guys around here have been like, no, I'd rather have the guy that does this for a living, come in and do this for me. But
it feels like they can fill, the SWAT team can fill the shooty role very well.
Yes.
You need the fixie role.
Yep.
It's easier.
We used to be armed, up until a couple of years ago. Yeah, up until a couple of years ago, everybody that was on tac-med was a deputized Ada County sheriff. But sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. But the state made some laws in place, basically, and it was a good thing at a state level. They're trying to increase the skill set and requirements for police officers. Did not leave any provision for teams like ours. So anybody that wanted to be a reserve Ada County or sheriff anywhere within the state has to go through the full post academy, has to do X number of hours on a car, all these things under the current provisions. So technically, we could, if we wanted to, go do that, but I don't think anybody wants to spend 4 months in a post academy.
And that's just too much money.
Yeah. So we are currently not armed. There's another local tac-med agency and ourselves are working on trying to legislatively find a loophole for that, because not that it's necessary, but especially coming from my background, I probably would feel more comfortable in these situations if I had something to defend myself with.
Well, you also have a bit of a different background than probably a lot of people.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, does your military experience play a big role into that?
As far as me getting onto the team, that was kind of why I wanted to do it. Because like I said, there's not a ton of incentive to do it right now. There's no pay incentive, anything like that. It's just kind of like, look, I'm on tac-med. I get a shiny badge now. Yeah. Which I don't even wear the shiny badge. But I don't know, coming from the background, I was an infantryman in the Army for 4 years before I, ended up kind of pursuing this, and it just seemed like a good fit. Like, it was like, oh, I can go, it kind of scratches an itch that's been sitting there in the back of my head for the last 5-6 years since I got out. So
it's a logical segue.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought. It's been a lot of fun. I worked in firearms for like 4 years after I got out too, before I actually got on full time in EMS. So it's a bunch of interests of mine that have kind of converged, and it's been really good.
So you said people have been struggling with the physical agility testing. If there's somebody listening that's like, and obviously it would be different department, but like, what were the standards you had to pass to get hired on?
And we're currently in the midst of debating if we're changing it. There's nationwide, there's two kind of standards that a lot of SWAT teams use to either determine it. The one we're currently using is the FBI's test, which is you do, the minimums are you have to be able to do 2 weighted pull-ups with vest and helmet, so it adds like 25, 30 pounds basically to you. A 40-yard sprint in under 7 seconds, and then there's this kind of run obstacle course event. It's a half-mile total. You get 5 minutes and 25 seconds I might have those numbers wrong, somewhere in that area, 5 minutes, minute and a half to run this half mile, but there's obstacles set up at various points. One is basically just like you're weaving in and out of cones. The other one's a dummy drag for 40 yards. It's like a 220-pound dummy. And the other one is burpees at each one of those previous 10 cones that you weaved through. And then you come back around. And then the other test, I'm not going to remember all the specifics of it. We use that FBI test right now, but the other one is similar concept. There's pull-ups, air squats, a couple different run events, buddy drag, stuff like that. So it's very similar in a lot of ways to the military physical fitness tests. And I, at the time, like it tried to kill me when I went through it. I got COVID really bad in 2022. My lungs hated me. So basically for the following year and a half until I decided to test for tac-med, I did not run. I was up to like 240 pounds. I was just powerlifting. Like that was the fitness that I found enjoyable that I could do without killing myself.
I hear that, buddy. I hear that.
Yeah, I could eat whatever I wanted and lift heavy things. It was great. So, and then that, like, I went into it thinking like, oh, those pull-ups are going to be a struggle. Did that just fine. And then that 5-minute, 30-second run, I was laying on the ground just like, oh, turns out I have asthma. Didn't know that. Thanks, COVID. But
that's just bleeding.
Yeah, it's just like, I can taste nickels in my mouth as I'm breathing. That's fine. But so I've lost like 30 pounds since then and been running a lot more to try to keep up with the testing and stuff like that. But it was it's been kind of an eye-opener for me in that regard. Like I think I finished it with like 5 seconds left to spare, like right under the minimums there.
So degrees, baby.
Did you do the tear gassing thing? Is that still
I did,
part of it?
yeah. So that's different testing. So they have the physical testing. They'll do that like a couple weeks before the actual technical testing, and then the technical testing is like you show up for an interview, and then like immediately after the interview, you go into this skills-based testing thing. So there's a bunch of scenarios, a bunch of skills that you do throughout it. Honestly, I don't remember a lot of it very well because the whole intent is try to get you so stressed out that you just lock up, and it worked for a lot of people. The time I tested, we had 6 people tested, 5 of us passed the physical, and only 2 of us passed the skills testing. So, but yeah, the tear gas is how they kind of finish it on you, is you go in without a gas mask at first. And my dumbass, like I went in this super confident because I did tear gas when I was in the military too. When I was in the military, I did not have lung issues. So it was like, yeah, this really sucks, but like it's not trying to kill me. And then I like super boldly walk into the tear gas chamber for the tac-med testing and take just like the smallest breath in the history of humankind, and I'm like, oh, my larynx is closed. I can't move air. This is great. And I come running out of the chamber, fall on the ground. I'm like trying to move air, finally vomit, take a puff of my inhaler of all things. And I'm like, these guys think I'm such a bitch. Like, there's no way I'm going to pass this. What a badass. Give me a gas mask. I go back in there and finish it. And I'm like I came away from it like, there's no way in hell I passed that. And then I get a call from the team leader and I'm like, when can I test again? And he's like, oh no, you passed. Like, oh,
Sick.
yeah, no, it was like our final testing to be medics was hard. That was definitely harder. That's probably the closest since the military that I've come to like completely like mind stopped, can't keep up with what's going on around me kind of. Yeah, it was good.
A former medic we used to work with when I was in medic school taught me or told me all about the testing, and I have no desire and had no desire to be on the tac-med test. I had 100% desire to do the testing just for the tear
Just
gas,
for fun. Yeah.
just to see if I could do it more than anything. Like, and then as I was rationalizing, because I was in pretty good shape when I first got into working at the county, and it was like, this is gonna be a weird conversation when I say if I pass and be like, hey, do you want this job?
I
actually don't.
I literally just did this to get tear gas.
Yeah. Turns out it sucks. You were right. I just need to find out for myself. I'm one of those slow learners.
I understand.
I got to burn myself twice before I figure it out. Yeah.
Have you actually been deployed on anything?
Yeah, we go out on it tends to be 2 or 3 a month that we go out on as a team. It depends on who's available. They're trying, just for staffing reasons, not to send anybody that's on the cars out. So it's usually people that are on their 4 days or on their in between days. But we do 2 or 3 of them a month. It's usually pretty mundane. Like for the most part, play platoon mom, like, hey guys, it's hot outside, drink water. Like, don't sit in the turret with your legs locked or you're gonna pass out.
You're not even my real dad.
Yeah. So only one call out that I can think of since I've been on the team has actually resulted in like a patient that wasn't just like bumps and bruises. So but no, it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it coming from that background, getting to do the trainings and stuff, getting to know those guys. I have like a weird relationship with police in my history, but it's still like, it's super interesting. I don't get to do like a bunch of the police stuff, so it still kind of balances. Like, I've never done anything that sent me to jail, but I definitely did some dumb drug related things in my teens. So
Live and learn moments.
Do you, if there was like an officer involved shooting, are you strictly for the SWAT members, or will you help victims as well?
it's kind of like a tiered system. So it's we are first and foremost responsible for the SWAT guys. But if no SWAT guys are injured and a bystander is injured, then we'll take care of the bystander as well. And then lastly, like bottom of the priority list is the bad guy, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
But it seems the only call out that's resulted in a patient has been the bad guy. SWAT guys around here, they're actually very, very well trained. We're fortunate in that regard around here. They actually won like the Pacific Northwest Championship or something for like SWAT. I don't know what the testing for that involves, but they won that event. So yeah, it's SWAT guys, bystanders, bad guy.
So which is that's just general scene safety protocols,
Yeah,
right?
yes, yeah.
Protect yourself, protect your team, protect the public, then you worry about the patient. So just kind of the same thing.
Yeah, exactly the same.
Same old.
Difference being like we will go in when it's still technically hot versus the standard scene safety.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay over here until you guys say it's code 4.
Yeah, scene safety is dictated kind of by your training and everything. So, and that was a big change I saw, that where, the local 911 agency went from like, cold zone only to like warm zone, right? We started to do
with the Asher training.
The Asher training, which when you hear about like that started because of, people literally watching 50 feet away, somebody bleeding out, dying.
Yeah.
At,
and not being
one
able to-
end of a mall where somebody's 300 yards away.
Yeah.
Like being
You're like, yeah, we know this is clear.
yeah, like we can
Why don't we
go to
put
the warm
people
zone.
there? Yeah.
So
That was one of my favorite trainings, though. Like that, we ran through that Asher right before I left, and that was really eye opening. That actually opened my thought process to like, ooh, tac-med is pretty cool. And then I'm obviously here now, so it didn't work out. But
In fairness, like tac-med will never be on those calls. Like the way it worked,
Right.
like we've got like a call out. We use the Signal app, and it's basically like, hey, we get notified by one of the SWAT teams that they've got a call out. Team leader texts all of us and is like, hey, who's available? And, who is not on shift and hasn't been drinking today, basically. And then we kind of go from there. But it's by the time we get on scene to spin up the SWAT team, it's an hour plus from the time that things have happened. So things like that, it's not going to be your tac-med team that goes in. It's going to be, medic 2-1 right there by the mall.
right,
Like,
it's because it's mostly like barricaded subjects, right?
Yeah,
Just because
usually,
like most
for the most
Asher
part.
situations are like 90 seconds, right? Isn't that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Barricaded subjects, high risk warrant services. They've been doing a lot more of them recently. So like, hey, we know this guy has a history of shooting at cops, and we're not going to send just street cops to take him down, kind of thing. So, but yeah.
would they ever call you guys out if there's like, like a high value like politician or something that
I
is
have
here?
not been around for that, but yes, that's so
They
like
will get-
I think it was 2022. Biden came to the airport, and so they worked with FBI, Secret Service, like all those 3-letter agencies that were over there, and
That's cool.
it was basically just extra coverage for him showing up. They did some of the like the whole team deployed for the George Floyd protests in downtown Boise. Things like that. So it's just kind of, any more high risk things that they don't necessarily want an ambulance to be right in the middle of. So
Cool.
Yeah, that armored ambulance is pretty sick.
it is pretty bad. Yeah.
When I was at that one station, every time I'd be there, I'd look into it. And there's a couple times where, like, one of the sheriff guys would come by and they'd be, like, checking on it. I'd be like, can I, like, just, like, get in there, like, look at it? And they're like, no. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to put fingerprints all over your windows.
Did you ever say
Because
like,
I'm looking.
"Hey, Who paid for that thing?
Yeah. First
That
of all,
was-
I kind of own this.
That was us, not you guys.
Yeah, we don't own it anymore, though.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
it got in one little fender bender that was very intentional on the part of the driver to try to stop a vehicle that they were interdicting, and they were like, I don't think I want, our ambulance agency's name on the side of that anymore.
Did they win, though?
Fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. Yeah.
That's all that matters.
I don't think that loses unless you're
Yeah,
against
that's
like
fair.
a fully laden 18-wheeler.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, cool. Yeah.
How was your brownie root beer?
Yeah.
I'm actually curious.
I need to bring that back around. Thank you. It was not my favorite, honestly.
It was
wasn't
really
bad.
sweet. I imagine it'd be really sweet.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. It's more less like the kind of vanilla-y like root beer. Not the best of what I've had here for sure. Would I go buy it again? No. Where I can't say the same. Most of them I'd be like, oh, this is really good. This one's been kind of mid, as the kids would say.
Mid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sabrina knows it. She knows what's up.
Check the lexicon.
How about you guys? How was your dill pickle beer?
I'm gonna be transparent. It's pretty awful. It's pretty bad. Like there's about half of this bad boy left. I'm gonna finish it because I'm a grown up, but I'm
I
not.
tried to offer you scotch.
I hindsight's 20. I bet this would go good, like as a pickleback. I'm not interested now, but I. bet
Are
it
you
would.
sure? Because I've still got scotch.
We'll talk. We got time. Yeah, if you're into pickles, this is your speed. Not for me. Not for me. Thanks, Sabrina. You're ruining my life.
Cody, how about you? It sounds like this is something you probably drink.
No, this is one of my go-tos. It's a really smooth, like it's not like a light beer like a Miller Lite or something like that, but it's not quite like a lager. So it's really smooth, but it's got a good flavor profile to it, and I don't know, it's one of my go-tos.
Yeah.
And then some fancy Scottish scotch there.
Is that your go-to brand of scotch?
No, a buddy bought that for me for my birthday actually, and I've really enjoyed it. That's usually how I end up with my nice liquors. Like I promise I'm not an alcoholic, but usually what happens is like my birthday comes around and I have 3 friends that are like, the best birthday gift that I can possibly give you is alcohol, and then I slowly drink that over the course of the year, and then I get 3 more bottles. So
It's all profit, baby.
it's great. Yeah. In fairness, I also contribute bottles to them, so I think it's probably breaking pretty even.
give and
but
take.
Not profit.
no,
Not profit.
but it's delicious.
Yeah.
So.
How about that Monster Energy drink? How'd that treat you?
I actually, I can't say stopped drinking those, but I have severely toned down on the number of Monsters I drank, especially after I got prescribed Adderall, because I was like, I feel like waking up in the morning and taking this with my Monster is probably not FDA approved. So that's my go-to, is like the old-fashioned Monster, now 0 sugar, and I have like 2 a week. I feel like that's... I can get a pass on that.
Yeah.
So 160 beats a minute is not normal?
You know what's funny is I actually it does not ramp my heart rate up at all.
That's what you would
and
think.
that's how that's when I finally decided that I wasn't just like gaslighting myself into having ADHD. Is it's like, I took Adderall and then promptly took a nap. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just took legally prescribed meth and I took a nap. Yeah. So
Thanks, Big Pharma.
yeah.
It's everybody's body's different. Cody.
Yeah,
So
broken is probably the word you're looking
Fair.
for.
Not broken, just bent. Still good.
You're broken too.
Still good.
sounds like the trailer for some Hallmark movie about you guys arguing that you're not broken. You're just bent.
I'm a real boy.
Coming this summer.
Him.
Joke's on you. I'm trying for years.
Well, cool. Thanks for being here,
Yeah,
Cody.
for sure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we'll have to get you back on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Some cool insight, especially about tac-med. Did you finish it? Did you man
My
up?
mouth is watering. I got the mouth sweats from that last little.
We're
good.
Do you want some scotch?
Not yet.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to the channel. We're new and trying to get it going, so we'd really appreciate that. And we'll see you next time.